When Belinda's parents died a few years ago in a tragic car accident, her entire world turned upside down. She had no siblings, no close relatives, only her mother's younger sister, Auntie Anita, who took her in not out of love, but out of duty and appearance. From the very first day Belinda entered that house, she felt like she didn't belong. Auntie Anita had two daughters of her own, Sophia and Sharon. From morning to night, they lived like little queens in the house. Everything was at their disposal: the best clothes, the tastiest meals, freedom to do anything they liked. They would lie on the couch all day, scroll through their phones, paint their nails, gossip and giggle, while Belinda worked from dawn to dusk. Every single chore in the house was assigned to Belinda. Dishes, hers. Cooking, hers. Sweeping the house, mopping the floors, scrubbing the bathrooms, cleaning the compound, washing clothes, both hand-washing and ironing. Every single one of them, hers. Auntie Anita had made it clear that Belinda's role in that house was not to enjoy, but to serve. "Are you not living under my roof? Should I also feed you for free?" She would snap often. "Be grateful I even took you in. Some people would have left you on the streets." Belinda never answered. She simply nodded and continued her work. She would wake up before anyone else in the house, sweep the compound while it was still dark, prepare breakfast, and then begin the rest of her tasks. Even if she was sick, even if her legs were trembling with weakness, she had no choice. Complaining would only invite insults, or worse, a slap. There were days when Belinda cooked all 3 meals of the day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yet she was not allowed to eat any of them. She would stand in the kitchen after serving everyone, staring at the empty pots, stomach growling, and hope that maybe a little scrap would be left over. But most times, nothing remained. And if she dared to ask, Anita would glare at her. "You think just because you touched the pot, you deserve to eat? Who told you this house is a charity home?" Sometimes Sophia and Sharon would purposely pour out the remaining food or take extra helpings just to make sure there was nothing left for Belinda. They delighted in her misery. They mocked her tattered clothes, her dry skin, and the calluses on her hands. If she sat down to rest, even for a minute, they would shout her name. "Belinda, come and fetch me water. Belinda, go and warm the soup. Belinda, the fan is not facing me. Fix it." And if she didn't answer quickly enough, they would report her to their mother, who would descend on her with insults and threats. "You lazy good-for-nothing. You want to be treated like my daughters? Don't even try it." There were nights when Belinda went to bed hungry, her body aching from the endless work, and her heart heavy with silent tears. She slept on a thin mat in the living room, while her cousins had soft beds in their shared room. Even when visitors came, Anita made sure to put on a good show. "This is Belinda," she would say sweetly, patting her shoulder. "My late sister's daughter. She helps around the house. Very quiet girl, respectful." And the visitors would nod, smile at Belinda, and say, "You're lucky to have such a kind aunt." Kind. If only they knew. One Sunday afternoon, after scrubbing the entire compound under the scorching sun, Belinda sat outside on the back step, too exhausted to move. Sweat trickled down her back, and her arms were sore. She hadn't eaten since the night before, and even then, all she had was a crust of bread. Just as she was catching her breath, Anita's voice rang from inside. "Belinda, you're sitting down there like a mad person. Have you washed the bathroom?" Belinda stood quickly, wincing at the sharp pain in her knees. "I was about to, Ma." "Useless girl. When your mother was alive, didn't she teach you how to behave? Maybe it's the same laziness that killed her." Belinda bit her lip hard, not because the insult didn't sting, but because it did. But she couldn't respond. She didn't have the right. Not here. Sophia and Sharon, from the living room, burst into laughter. As Belinda picked up the bucket and brush, her stomach growled again, and her eyes blurred from fatigue and sadness. But she carried on. She always did. Because she had no choice. Because there was no one out there to save her. She didn't know any other relatives, didn't have any friends, and the neighbors were too used to seeing her scrubbing floors to question her suffering. Day after day, she endured it all, in silence, but deep inside, she held on to a quiet strength, a small voice in her soul that whispered, "One day." One hot Tuesday afternoon, Belinda was sent to the market with a long list from Auntie Anita. Rice, beans, gari, groundnut oil, spices, tomatoes, pepper, and soap. It felt like everything in the world was on that list. As usual, she left the house early, with a worn-out bag and a few old sacks for the items. The sun was unforgiving, beating down on her as she moved from stall to stall, bargaining and buying everything carefully, just as Anita had instructed. By the time she was done, her back was already sore. The load was heavy, far too heavy for her thin arms, but she didn't dare return home without everything, so she packed them into the sacks, tied them up, and tried to lift them onto her head. Her hands trembled, her legs wobbled, and the pain shot through her back as she tried to balance the load. She staggered a few steps, visibly struggling. "Hey, let me help you with that," a voice said gently. Belinda turned to see a young man walking toward her from a nearby grocery stall. He was tall, neatly dressed, and had kind eyes that softened when he looked at her. His shirt was a little dusty from the market hustle, but his smile was warm, so different from the harsh faces she was used to. I don't have money to pay you," she stammered quickly, assuming he was one of those young men who carried goods in exchange for coins. The young man chuckled and shook his head. "No, no. I didn't say you should pay me. I just want to help you. I can see you're tired." She paused, unsure. It had been so long since anyone had offered her help without expecting something in return. There was a part of her that wanted to refuse, out of habit, but her body was aching, and her arms were already shaking. "Are you sure?" she asked in a low voice. "I'm sure. My name is David," he said with a calm smile. "Let me carry that for you." Relief washed over her like cool water on a hot day. For the first time in what felt like forever, someone had shown her kindness without reason or obligation. "Thank you," she whispered, handing him the load. He lifted the sack easily, placing it over his shoulder. "Where are you heading?" "Not far, just across the main road, then left through the housing side." "All right, let's go." As they walked, David tried to start a conversation, his tone friendly and unthreatening. "You live around here?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes." "Do you come to this market often?" She nodded again. He smiled gently. "You don't talk much, do you?" Belinda gave a small smile. "Not really. I'm just not used to talking much." He didn't push. Instead, he pointed to the stall they were passing. "That's mine," he said. "I sell groceries there. Rice, beans, the usual things people buy. My parents live far away, but I run the shop here." Belinda turned to look and saw his small table shaded by a blue umbrella. It was simple, but neatly arranged, with baskets of onions and sachets of seasonings displayed. "Looks nice," she said quietly. "Thanks," he replied. "What's your name?" "Belinda." "Belinda," he repeated. "That's a beautiful name." She blushed faintly. Nobody had said that to her before, not with that tone, not without mocking her. They reached the turn leading to her street. She pointed ahead. "It's just by the second house." David walked her all the way to the gate and gently placed the sack down. "There you go." "Thank you," she said again, this time a little louder, with more feeling in her voice. He nodded, smiling. "Listen, any time you come to the market, please stop by my stall. Even if you just want to rest or talk, I'll be there. And don't worry about the load. I'll always help you carry it back. You don't need to do it alone." Her heart swelled. Something inside her warmed up, something that had been cold for a long, long time. She had grown used to silence, loneliness, and carrying more than her share, both physically and emotionally. But here, in the middle of the dusty market and noisy traders, She had found someone who saw her, someone who wanted to help without asking for anything in return. "I will," she said softly. From that day on, whenever Belinda went to the market, she passed by David's stall. Sometimes she was only sent to buy tomatoes, sometimes only soap, but she always stopped by. David would smile, wave her over, offer her water to drink, and walk her part of the way home. They talked more and more each time. About simple things at first, how hard the market could be, the weather, the price of food. Then deeper things, his dream to open a bigger store, her longing for peace, her love for singing, which she hadn't done in years. She began to laugh again, just little laughs, but they came from her heart. And David never pushed her to tell her full story. He waited patiently, listened when she spoke, and simply made her feel safe. For the first time in years, Belinda had someone she could confide in, someone who didn't judge her, didn't burden her, didn't ignore her. She had found a friend, and her world, though still filled with suffering, suddenly didn't feel so lonely anymore. As the weeks passed, Belinda continued to visit David at the market. Their friendship blossomed gently, wrapped in quiet smiles, shared secrets, and kind words. Each visit felt like a breath of fresh air. For the first time, someone spoke to her like she mattered. Someone asked about her dreams. Someone cared. But back at Auntie Anita's house, the atmosphere remained the same, if not worse. Sophia had recently started dating a man who appeared to be wealthy. He often came to pick her up in a shiny black car with tinted windows. He wore gold chains and nice shoes, and when he stepped out, he always had the air of someone important. Whenever he visited, Anita made a show of things, offering him the best seat, the best food, and complimenting him shamelessly. Sophia, now full of herself, would look at Belinda with scorn and laugh loudly with Sharon. "Look at you, always wearing the same slippers. You think any man will look at you like this?" she mocked one afternoon. Sharon added, "Ah, men like rich girls, fine girls, girls who slay. Not someone that smells like dettle and firewood." Belinda kept silent. She was used to the mockery. "You," Sophia said, pointing a long fake nail at her, "you will suffer all your life. Even if a man manages to talk to you, he'll be one broke, hungry, useless man." Their laughter echoed down the hallway. But one evening, something changed. Sophia's boyfriend, who had come to visit again, stepped out of his car and saw Belinda struggling to sweep the compound with a worn-out broom. She was sweating, her back bent. But even in her simplicity, there was something about her, something graceful. He stared for a moment too long, and Belinda, shyly, stood up straight and greeted him. "Good evening, sir." He nodded slowly, looking at her with a strange expression. "Evening." That night, Sophia noticed something. Her boyfriend, who had always kept his eyes only on her, seemed distracted. She saw the way he glanced towards Belinda before leaving. She saw the subtle change in his smile. Her blood boiled. She ran straight to her mother. "Mummy, I think that Belinda is trying to snatch my man." Anita frowned. "How? What do you mean?" "I saw the way he was looking at her. She's trying to use that innocent face of hers. She's pretending. If we're not careful, he'll leave me for her." From that day, the house became even more unbearable for Belinda. The chores increased. The insults deepened. There were days she wasn't allowed to eat anything at all. They accused her of being a witch, of seducing men, of pretending to be humble. One day, as fate would have it, Sophia spotted Belinda walking home from the market with David. He had carried her load again, and they were laughing softly, enjoying a little moment of peace. Sophia's eyes widened in disgust. She rushed home and screamed, "Mummy! I just saw Belinda with a useless man. He looks poor like a hawker. That's probably the one she's giving her eyes to now." Anita fumed. "Useless girl! So she's now going about with men like that? And in broad daylight?" That evening, Anita called Belinda into the sitting room. Her arms were folded, her face stone cold. "Who is the boy you were walking with today?" Belinda looked down. He's a friend. Friend? Since when do you have friends? He helps me carry the load sometimes from the market. He's kind. Anita narrowed her eyes. I want to meet this friend of yours. Tomorrow, call him, tell him to come. Belinda hesitated. Her heart raced. Yes, Ma. The next day, with trembling hands, Belinda found David and explained everything. He was surprised, but he agreed to come. When David arrived at the house, he wore his cleanest shirt and carried himself respectfully. He greeted Anita with humility and waited patiently as she looked him over with clear disapproval. So, she began, you're the one following Belinda around the market? David cleared his throat gently. Yes, Ma, but not following Ma. We met by chance. She was struggling with her load, and I offered to help. She's a very good girl, respectful, quiet. I like her, Ma. Anita scoffed. You like her? What are your intentions? I wanted to know her more. Maybe, if things go well in the future, I can— Stop there, Anita interrupted sharply. I don't have time for stories. You said you like her, right? Good. You can take her. From today, I don't want to see her in my house again. David blinked, shocked. Ma? You heard me. You want her, take her. No need to come with any family or perform any ceremony. Just take her. That's your wife now. I don't care where you go. Just leave my house. David stared in disbelief. But Ma, even if I want to take her, I must come properly. Maybe ask for her hand. You don't have money. You don't have anything. You don't need to come back here. Just carry her and go. Simple. She stood up, went to the corridor, and shouted, Belinda, come here. Belinda walked in slowly, her heart pounding. Anita looked at her with finality and said, Here's your husband. Go with him. You don't live here anymore. Belinda stood frozen. Her mouth trembled. She glanced at David, who looked just as shocked. Then back at Anita. There were no tears, no screams, just a deep, crushing ache in her chest. David walked to her side and gently touched her arm. It's okay, he whispered. Come with me. She nodded slowly. A part of her was relieved. Finally, she was free from that house, but another part of her burned with shame. Is this how it ends? Thrown out like trash? As she walked out of the gate with David beside her, she didn't know where they were going. She didn't know if he even had a space for her in his life or his home. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But for the first time, the door to her suffering had closed behind her. And ahead, maybe, just maybe, a new one had opened. Back at Auntie Anita's house, life went on. Sophia continued parading her so-called wealthy boyfriend around the neighborhood. She wore new wigs, flashy dresses, and always had her nails freshly done. Sharon followed in her footsteps, often giggling about how her own time would come soon. After Belinda left, there was more time for Sophia to enjoy herself without interruption. More space for Sharon to laze around, and no one to remind them, by mere presence, what humility looked like. Sophia and her boyfriend, his name was Mark, kept up their romance. Mark still came by in his black car, still wore his designer shirts and shiny watches, and still spoke with the confidence of a man who had connections and money. He bought Sophia cheap perfumes and imitation handbags, pretending they were imported from Dubai. Auntie Anita beamed every time he visited, calling him my son-in-law, and dreaming of the day he would marry Sophia and lift the entire family into wealth. But one evening, things shifted. Mark came by looking unusually serious. He sat in the living room, folded his hands, and told Anita and Sophia that he had a little problem with his business. Just a small issue with frozen funds, due to some international transactions. It's nothing, really, he said casually. Just a delay. My money is there, a lot of it, millions. But I need a bit of cash now to push a deal through, and once I do, the funds will be released. I'll get it times 10. Sophia nodded eagerly, and Mama Anita leaned forward. So, you're saying if we help you now, you'll reward us later? She asked. Exactly, Mark replied. It's a simple business thing. I just need a little help to unlock everything. That was all Anita needed to hear. She saw it as her golden opportunity. She had always believed she was born to be rich. Now this was it. She rushed into her room that night, opened her old wooden box, and took out her savings. Years of selling fabric at the market. Years of toiling, saving little by little. Not only did she bring her savings, she even emptied the capital for her current business. All of it into Mark's hands. A few days after the money was given, Mark stopped visiting. When Sophia tried calling him, his line was switched off. The first day, she wasn't worried. The second day, she began to panic. By the third day, she could barely sleep. "Mummy," she said one evening, "Mark's phone is not going through." Anita raised her brow. "Maybe he traveled. Have you gone to his house?" Sophia looked down. "I don't know where he lives." Anita froze. "You... what?" I don't know where he stays. We always met here, or sometimes at one restaurant near town." "You don't know where he lives?" Anita stood, her voice rising. "You let this man enter my house, eat my food, call you his wife, collect my entire life savings, and you don't even know where he lives? I'm sorry, I didn't think." "You didn't think? Do you know what that money meant to me? Do you know how long I worked for it? You're a fool, Sophia. A big fool." Sophia began to cry, but Anita was just getting started. That night, Anita noticed something strange. Sophia wasn't eating well, she looked tired, and she kept running to the bathroom. A sick feeling began to grow in Anita's stomach. She didn't wait for anyone to suggest anything. The next morning, she took Sophia to the hospital herself. After a short consultation and some tests, the nurse came back with the result. "Positive," she said. "She's pregnant." Anita stared at the paper in disbelief. She stepped outside and sat on the bench in silence. "Pregnant? After all this? You're pregnant for a man who stole all our money and vanished?" Sophia didn't answer. There was nothing to say. But the storm wasn't over. 2 weeks later, Anita began noticing changes in Sharon as well. She had become unusually quiet, withdrawn. She looked uneasy and refused to eat certain foods. One evening, Anita cornered her. "Sharon," she said sharply, "something is not right. Talk now. What are you hiding?" Sharon burst into tears. "It's Mark. He said he liked me. He was always giving me small money when Sophia wasn't around. He promised me things, that he'd take care of me. That's why I went out with him." Anita's mouth fell open. "You mean Mark? The same one your sister was calling her fiancé?" Sharon nodded, sobbing uncontrollably. Anita grabbed her wrapper, tied it tighter around her waist, and shouted, "Jesus! My head! So not only did he disappear with my money, he left both of you with child?" The house exploded into chaos. Sophia screamed at Sharon. Sharon shouted back. Anita screamed at both of them. Anita was beyond speechless. Her daughters, both pregnant for a man who had conned them, humiliated them, and vanished, had shattered what little pride she had left. Her savings, gone. Her business, destroyed. Her home, filled with disgrace. And the quiet girl she had mocked and thrown out, the one she thought would never amount to anything, was no longer there to witness her downfall. Belinda followed David quietly that day, just after they left Auntie Anita's house. Her heart was heavy from the way she had been thrown out, but she also felt a strange sense of peace. Freedom. She wasn't sure what awaited her, but she trusted David. He had always been kind to her. When they arrived at David's place, she saw it was small. A single-room apartment with a small kitchenette and a bathroom tucked at the back. The walls were plain, the furniture modest, but it was clean and peaceful. Belinda looked around and smiled. To her, it felt like paradise. There was no shouting, no insults, no forced chores. She was treated like a human being, and for the first time in her life, she slept in peace, on a mattress that was hers, in a room where no one barged in to scream at her. For the next 2 months, life settled into a gentle rhythm. Every morning, they would go together to David's stall in the market. She helped arrange the groceries, sometimes even did the selling when David had to step away. Customers began to notice her and liked her sweet nature. David treated her with love and patience, and though he had not touched her in any improper way, she felt deeply secure beside him. She would cook simple meals, tidy the room, laugh with him in the evenings. They would sit outside sometimes and talk about life, about dreams, about the future. It wasn't a rich life, but to Belinda, it was the best life she could ever imagine. She often looked around the small room, and her heart would swell with gratitude. She had thought her life would end in Auntie Anita's house, working like a slave until she grew old. She had never imagined escape, let alone joy. But here she was, living, breathing, free. But she was far from imagining what was really happening. One day, after 2 months of their peaceful life together, David came back from the market and told her, "Tomorrow, I want us to go somewhere together." She looked at him, curious. "Where?" "You'll see," he smiled. The next morning, they took a bus and arrived at the gates of a beautiful, massive mansion. The gate was tall and shiny, guarded by security. As they entered, Belinda's heart started to beat fast. The house stood like a palace, painted ivory, surrounded by lush gardens, large windows, balconies, and a driveway paved in stone. Belinda froze. "David, what is this place?" He smiled and held her hand. "Come." She followed him inside, confused, wondering if they had come to visit someone. But everyone in the house greeted David with respect, as though he lived there. He led her through the large corridors, up the marble stairs, and into a spacious living room that looked like something out of a magazine. "David, I don't understand." He turned to her, gently cupping her hands. "Belinda, this house is mine, and now it's yours too." She blinked. "Yours?" "Yes," he nodded. "I didn't want to tell you right away. I needed to be sure you liked me for me, not for anything else. And you did. You loved the life we had. You were content with what little we had. And that told me everything I needed to know about your heart." Tears filled her eyes. I thought you were just a simple man at the market." He chuckled. "I wanted to live humbly for a while, to find someone real. And I found you." Belinda's knees gave out, and she slowly knelt, overwhelmed by emotion. "I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything," David said, helping her up. "Just say yes." "To what?" "To becoming my wife." In that very mansion, they got married that week in a simple but elegant ceremony. A few of David's trusted friends came. A few staff members celebrated with joy. And Belinda, the girl who had once scrubbed floors until her hands bled, was now standing in a satin gown, holding the hand of a man who cherished her. Life changed completely. She now had a home. Not just a house, but a true home. Her days were filled with laughter, peace, and love. She wasn't anyone's servant anymore. She was a wife, a partner, a queen in her own right. Meanwhile, back in her former life, the news began to spread. Someone from the market had seen David's luxury car when he came to pick Belinda one day. Someone else had heard whispers about a wedding. And eventually, word reached Auntie Anita. At first, she refused to believe it. "Which Belinda?" she asked. "Our own Belinda." "Yes, that same one," said the neighbor. "She's married now, living in a mansion. Her husband is rich, very rich." Anita sat in silence for a long time. Her heart beat heavily in her chest. The girl she had mistreated, humiliated, and discarded had found love. And not just love, a whole new life. A life she could only dream of now. She wanted to reach out, to ask for help. With her business gone, her savings lost, and her daughters pregnant and bitter, she had nothing left. But she didn't have the courage. She remembered the day she pushed Belinda out like trash, and now that same Belinda was living in grace, while she sat in disgrace. Her shame was too heavy. She said nothing. But in her heart, she regretted every single thing she had ever done to that girl. Because Belinda wasn't just some poor burden her sister left behind. She was family, and she had treated her worse than a stranger. But it was too late. Belinda had walked through the storm and found her rainbow. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like, comment, and share the video. Also, please subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so that you won't miss our next video. Bye!